This is Dane Moore NBA podcast brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Tuesday evening after the Wolves season opener out here in LA. It was a 110-103 loss to the Lakers. I'm here with Kyle Theige back at our hotel. A lot of on the court things to get to from this game. They kind of some clear lapses, I think, on both sides of the ball in this game, but also a lot of off the court stuff happened today too. We got that ownership update. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then Rudy Gobert, kind of out of nowhere, right before the game signs that extension. Yes, but I'm here with Kyle. How are you? And where would you like to start this one?
I think you got to start with the game because so much to talk about from this game and this preseason and the trades and the moves and all that stuff. But for a team that is coming off a Western Conference Finals appearance and is kind of sounded collectively in the preseason like they had kind of one mission, I don't think we'll get into glass half full, glass half empty. I honestly just thought they played like dog shit. Like I don't know if anyone could have really played worse. I mean, even Ant post game was saying that he thought it was just if they make some shots, they win the game.
That's a go-to. Ant doesn't know what to say after a loss line.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Granted, there was a lot of shots. I mean, Mike Conley comes to mind.
They definitely could have been more shots.
Where it was a lot of good looks, maybe more so in that second half. But just being in the arena as you and I were, even though we were sitting up basically by the Hollywood sign at Staples Center, there's just no juice like the whole time. Like they never really had any of that energy, that cohesiveness that they showed in the preseason. Obviously the preseason was weird, right? Because it wasn't like a ton of Randle reps with this starting lineup, but a completely disappointing game one while also being like, okay, a lot of this stuff. I mean, glass half full for me is that they couldn't have played worse. And with like 6:50 left in the fourth quarter, they were down 4. I don't know if it was ever really that close, but I don't know, man. That was a tough way to kick off what should have been kind of like the next step of what you just left last year.
Yeah, I think what was so interesting to me, and having done a bunch of interviews with Finch over the last month or so with training camp and stuff, like he kind of called this.
Yeah.
where he's like, well, we moved the ball great in the regular season or in the preseason last year too, and then the first game came around and stats started to count and people stopped passing. And he was saying that the these last couple of weeks, as people were lauding the ball movement and how good the offense looked, and then tonight after the game, I guess I'll just play this clip. But he was like, "Yep, this was my biggest fear."
Do everything 1-on-5. Really disconnected, like all the flow, rhythm, goodwill that we built up offensively through the preseason. We just didn't have it. And then when we were able to get some open looks, they didn't go in for the large part there. But we didn't generate enough good ones for us to be able to catch any rhythm. So.
You kind of talked about being concerned about that, the shift from preseason to regular season. Do you just sense that it was guys trying to do too much, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's again, it's I think it's my biggest fear from an offensive point of view is exactly what we did last year. We came out game one and the ball got super sticky. We got disconnected quickly and everyone went one-on-one.
So, Kyle, I think the good news off of that is it didn't take the Wolves too long to shake that off last year, where it was that first game in Toronto, the opener, and they don't move the ball at all and they end up losing to the Raptors. And again, very similar vibe to this, like a flat game. And then they beat Miami. I believe it was Miami game 2. And then they lose to Atlanta, where they blew that 20-point lead. And then I think they went 16-2 in the next 8 or maybe 14-2, something like that, in the next 16, 18 games after that. So I asked Finch also after the game, I was like, so what was the remedy? What was the remedy to actually moving the ball and playing the way that you played in training camp and having that translate over? But he he seemed pissed. He was like, just the willingness to do it. The players just have to do that. And what I think that means is that you do need to not think about your stats. You do need to not think about how am I getting to mine? How am I getting to my bucket here in this situation? How am I playing off of my teammates? And what's encouraging to me, because I think it was, if we just watched how this team played offensive basketball in a vacuum of just tonight, you'd be like, okay, I'm concerned about this team being able to be an above average offensive team, which is a clear need this season. But I can picture them in one of these next couple of games, it clicking in and you having that ball movement that was there all preseason, and also doing it in a game where Julius is playing, who didn't play very much then. Like, I think it's seeming a little bit more distant than maybe it is in reality. Or I don't know. I would think it was distant, but just going off of last season and their ability to kind of right the ship rather quickly, that gives me a little bit of encouragement that this won't be a permanent thing. But it is a different team. It is a different rosters. These are different players that would need to buy in the same way that they did a season ago.
The Toronto loss was brought up a lot post game in the locker room. I think Luka Garza just randomly blurted it out, and then Ant fed off. He's like, "Yeah, that's right. Like, we did do that, And then look what we did." So it is one game. I still, they're, in my mind, they're going to hit over 52.5 wins and all that stuff. But I kind of would throw you a curveball here. There was something I was thinking about during that whole game, because I thought Mike Conley played one of his worst games in a Timberwolves uniform.
Yeah.
He was 0 for 5 from 3. I think he had some really great looks where Ant finally started to collapse the defense and kick it to him. And I think 3 or 4 misses in a row in the third quarter. He just didn't have it. I thought they missed Kyle Anderson tonight. Not to get into the old fling, but when Mike isn't producing, then it's kind of hard to also lead in a weird way, because it's do it by kind of demonstrate by how he's doing it. But when Mike was just taken out of the picture, they didn't have anyone to regroup themselves. There was no one out there. I mean, Nikhil tries, but I don't even think Nikhil had an assist. They don't have another adult to kind of regroup or kind of get them into stuff. And I thought that, again, Kyle Anderson they'll figure it out without him.
I hear what you're saying. It's a good point.
When you take Mike out of there, is who was going to be the adult in the room to kind of quarterback that thing or get him going? Because it wasn't Dante and it wasn't Nikhil. And to be honest with you, I mean, I know Ant said he thought he played a good game and the raw numbers look okay. And he's the face of the franchise now. You can be critical in these losses, but I just thought he got such tunnel vision there for a second. I was like, I'm going to do this myself. And he hit some amazing, he hit that step back 3 over LeBron. I think he was going at LeBron, going at AD, going at Austin Reeves, but he had an opportunity to just get others involved. And I think that would have given them some juice. I don't think this team is going to constantly be able to just live off of the Anthony Edwards save us offense, right? That's not going to juice up the rest of the rotation. And again, I just think if Kyle Anderson was out there tonight, he would have, after the 15th made AD bucket in a row, he would have got the ball in the inbound and he would have got him into something that was, how many times did you hit me? Be like, hey, get into stuff earlier. And they were just not doing that tonight. So again, one game, but it's also okay, they can pivot, and on Sacramento on Thursday, they can score 135 and kind of remedy themselves. But how is this happening again when you already witnessed it a year ago to start the season?
Yeah, well, they need more offense, right? And they get more offense by playing more connected.
Yeah.
Kyle Anderson was somebody who helped them play more connected offensively last season. Obviously, brought some other issues in terms of shooting. I thought they missed Cat. That was what that's, I mean, we're saying similar things of just they needed more offense, but it made me kind of maybe appreciate in hindsight a little bit more how much they could just go to that Cat lever. You could just pull that Cat lever, and sometimes it was sticky and it was, the bumbling drives and the offensive fouls and stuff like that. But how many times in the second quarter was it just man, I mean, you could just kind of run a pick and pop for Carl here to get into his weird little pump fake and drive game, or give it to Carl at the elbow extended to go to work. They missed that even when Randle, I think it was in the third quarter, kind of got into a little bit of an offensive groove, kind of in that same sort of way. I was this offense needs that. And again, well, we do know what Finch wants. It isn't as much of that of picking a person, being like, you go and do that, because that's where Ant gets the tunnel vision. That's where Carl would get, he would get offensive fouls or he would get some turnovers. But they need more easy offense. Or this game, it didn't seem to me like they had enough easy offense. And maybe that was just because Mike Conley was clearly like just not at all himself right away in that game. Dante DiVincenzo was not looking like the offensive dynamic player that they had in the preseason. Julius Randle looked super rusty from a offensive standpoint, but it just, I did so much praising in the
Right.
in the the preseason about kind of replacing Cat with the idea of a group that fits better, is deeper, and all those sort of ways. I was kind of like, just for tonight, you kind of wish you could have done a 2-for-1 trade to have
Right.
the one, and that would have been a little bit a little bit more go-to offense.
Preseason, I kind of said that maybe Julius Randle would be the Kyle Anderson replacement, whereas Naz Reid might slide into that, that he'll try to replace the production that Carl gave you. So I thought Julius Randle would be more Kyle Anderson. Some people thought Julius Randle would be more Karl-Anthony Towns. Whatever side you're on, how did you think he played tonight? Because I think it's a late tip, 9:00 West Coast. Some people might be tuning into this Wednesday morning and not have watched the game and look at the box score and be like, okay, he had 16, 9, and 4. He shot 50%. He was the only starter that was plus. And I'm just, you know what I mean?
Randall?
Like, yeah. So it's like, how did you just, that I can think of the 3 times he just got backdoor cut, like super chill, and it was just easy buckets. His attention to detail on defense was just not there. But offensively, despite it being really sticky to start out with, again, forget the box score, I thought there was some stuff where it's like, he led the team in assists with 4, which isn't great, but it's like I don't know if I'm good. I have to rewatch.
I mean, man, like, you're framing this up like he did not look good. Everybody watched the game.
That's why
It did not
way to
look
get
good.
to that. It's like he did not have a great start to his Timberwolves tenure.
Well, and the start part is probably true, because the first half was not good, and then it was that second quarter where they took Rudy out of the game, and the Randall Reid pairing got torched defensively, or the group that was out there when they didn't have Rudy out on the floor. I did say before, like, Julius got going, and he had a nice little stretch there in the third quarter, maybe third, beginning fourth. I don't remember exactly. And he did give them some offense as a team. They played a lot better offense in the second half than they did in the first half. I think in the first half they were like well under a point per possession, which something they very rarely did last season. And whenever they did, they lost that game. But yeah, what I felt like I was seeing from him, and this would kind of make sense with bad first half, better second half, was just a guy who seemed super rusty.
Yeah.
He just and there's something to that, in that he just hasn't been able to play that much basketball in the past 5-6 months, whatever it is, given his shoulder injury. I don't think every Julius Randle game is going to look like that or have that feel to it. But maybe this is our first sort of Julius Randle experience, where the eye test maybe seems a little bit more like cumbersome and difficult than the reality of what the numbers were. That's kind of was my abiding Julius Randle sort of thought when I was just thinking about him as a player, these past few years in New York.
You mentioned the Nas Julius Randle pairing getting torched. They're gonna have to figure that out too. Like, those guys are gonna have to play at some point together.
A lot.
But I also,
every minute Rudy doesn't play, that has
not
to
to make an excuse, but I wonder how many of those minutes had Jaden out there, who, again, like, Jaden, please, for the love of God, like, not again, right? Like, you can't be the foul trouble mounting. And I actually thought offensively he did some things like, I haven't really seen that. He was really open to, like, take a step back 3, and he hit that floater. But if he can't stay on the floor because he can't stay out of foul trouble, I don't think they lost this game because of Jaden, but I think his early foul trouble just kind of nuked any sort of rotation. I mean, Finch basically played like 8.2 guys tonight, because Ingles played 7 minutes. When Nas and Julius are out there,
Jaden has to be out there.
Exactly.
And he couldn't be because he was in foul trouble. But that was, I mean, let's just talk about the Reid-Randle pairing. Like, that is a must figure out situation that they're going to have to figure out. And I think one way to figure that out is like, well, you're going to have to play a really good defensive backcourt the whole time with that. Like, I gotta have 2 or 3 of DiVincenzo, Alexander Walker, and McDaniels on the floor with that.
And everyone has to dig in and rebound.
Yeah, and but Jaden can. Like,
Yeah.
Jaden also, if Jaden would be the 3 in that lineup configuration, he brings you a lot of size at the 3. And you're really gonna lack size at the 4 and 5 if it's, Reid-Randle, however you handle that there. And it's probably the place where they need Jaden's rebounding to step up. I do think Jaden's gonna have a better rebounding season. I think he's bigger, stronger, more physical, and can and should be expected to have a better rebounding season. But yeah, you're right. I think we maybe don't have this first image of the Reid-Randle pairing being a disaster, like what it was, like a 9-27 run or something in the second quarter. I think it was 14-2. The Lakers started out on a run, and they needed McDaniels to be in there in that spot. But the foul trouble plague is just there with Jaden. I don't know if that's going to go away. I mean, it's just so much part of his identity, like on the floor of his as a defender, great defender. But the fouls are there always, and it's a bummer. They need him to not do that. I don't know what exactly happened on that LeBron sort of they ran into each other tackle, but that's if that play could be preventable, it needs to be prevented. It's got to save the fouls to be good fouls and necessary fouls.
Yeah, and I don't remember off the top of my head if any of his fouls were like dumb. I know that one where they kind of tackle each other.
I didn't see what happened. I just saw them spilled over
right in front of Lil Wayne and Shannon Sharp. I don't think that there was any dumb fouls, but again, as this evolves and there is no Carl who gave you pretty good defense and there is no Kyle who gave you really good defense, like I know we're all looking for the Jaden McDaniels offensive leap. I'm okay if that doesn't come again, just with what Randall is going to give you when he's not rusty and what DiVincenzo is going to give you. And I mean, God forbid, like Rob Dillingham didn't even get off the bench. Jaden has to just play if Jaden McDaniels just plays all second team defense again and doesn't take any offensive leap, that's fine.
Because when Rudy was off the floor last season,
no one.
When Rudy was off the floor last season, they did. That was the Cat and Kyle Anderson.
Yep.
That was what the front court looked like there. Or maybe Nas would be in there too. It'd be like, Cat at the 5, Nas at the 4, Kyle at the 3. That was often what it looked like when Gobert was off the floor. Today, when Rudy was off the floor, it was like Randall, Reid, DiVincenzo. And that's just not the same size, not the same defenders that it was a season ago. So I'm sure that's what they're talking about, in their coaches meeting, is needing to find ways to sort of insulate the non-Rudy minutes, because there's going to be games when Rudy's in foul trouble too, or Rudy's hurt, whatever. They need that group. They need to find something there like they found with Carl last season, who did a really good job when he was exclusively at the 5 last year.
Yeah, and not to just randomly bring up Josh Minot, but I want to say this before in case we get down a rabbit hole.
Well, can we grab our first break
first?
Let's do that. Otherwise, we'll get in a rabbit hole and not get there. Today's show is brought to you by Stone and Skillet English Muffins. Kyle, I know we are excited to have Stone and Skillet back this season, and they are back this season because so many of you, I know you're probably like, what? A bunch of people bought English muffins? You did, and we really appreciate that, Kyle. I was thinking about how this morning we had Starbucks breakfast, and I've had these Stone and Skillet English muffins at home, and been most mornings until I run out of my package of them. It's just great to start your day with filling food that is good, and these English muffins, we've talked about them a million times, but it's like a substantive piece of bread, and obviously bread is a luxury, and it's something extra to take on. But Kyle and I both love these, and I think a lot of you listeners did too. We just want to put them again on your radar. Go to stoneandskillet.com to purchase. to purchase an order if you want to get them delivered. Otherwise, they are at Whole Foods. We shop at Whole Foods, and every time I go over the little bread section over there, I pick up a package of Stone and Skillet English muffins. So if you want to buy them online, you can do that at stoneandskillet.com, or you can just do it at your local Whole Foods. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. And Kyle, as you know, they had the Anthony Edwards, or all week they have the Anthony Edwards free square. If Anthony Edwards scores a point in any of his games this week, you get that square for free. So you just kind of have to make a couple other picks in your lineup from there. Do you have the box score up right there? I just want to I put down what all the guys' point totals were.
Hit me.
So Julius Randle's more or less on Prize Picks for this game was 18.5. What did he have?
16.
He had 16, so he would have been less than 18.5. Rudy Gobert, his number was 12.5. What did he have?
13.
So Gobert was there. Naz's was 12.
12.
That's okay. Yeah, that's good.
Push action.
DiVincenzo was 11.5.
10.
10. Yeah, wow. That's really close. Mike Conley was 10. What did he have?
It felt like -30, but 5.
5. So he was less than. McDaniels' number was only 9. What did he finish with?
6.
6. But how many minutes did he play? I mean,
16.
Yeah, that's. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker was at 5.5, and I think he
14. He was good.
Yeah, he was well above that. So I say that to mean that these numbers are pretty sticky. Like they kind of stay for a couple weeks, and then maybe they'll change them. So if you're thinking about placing a Prize Picks lineup for maybe the Wolves game on Thursday, obviously get that Anthony Edwards free square, but kind of go and check. Maybe the lines will move a little bit, but think about the Kings matchup and which players you think will be emphasized as scorers, and you can pick up more on them. Or if you think whatever, if you think Gobert's not going to have 12.5 points, you can go less than there. Obviously, they have 3-pointers made. They got rebounds, assists, all that sort of stuff. We've been talking so much about football with Prize Picks, but it's really fun with basketball too, whether it's a Wolves game or just another random, national NBA game or something that you're turning on. It's fun to put together a $5 lineup and have something to go for there. So it'll be fun to look at these Wolves ones throughout the season. We'll talk about more, maybe some favorite picks we have matchup specific going forward. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app. You can use the promo code Dane. And when you do that and you submit your first $5 lineup, they will instantly credit your account with $50. So a little incentive to try it out. Plus the Anthony Edwards free square. Take advantage of that stuff. They're giving you an advantage right there. And we'd love for you to play along again. That's prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app, and you can use the promo code Dane. All right, Kyle, where do you want to get to next here?
Well, I thought it was cool because we said, like, every game coaches do pre and post game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we kind of did today after we found out where to go was we went and sat in JJ Redick's first official press conference as a head coach during the regular season. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, I mean, it's kind of funny too. Like, if you're looking at this in the big picture, this was a bad time for the Wolves to play the Lakers and a good time for the Lakers to play the Wolves. It's pretty much the same roster for LA, minus, a couple rookies, one of them who maybe we'll talk about for a little bit. And then the Wolves
No, we will not.
The Wolves have, still a pretty cohesive unit and returning most of the same guys, but a seismic shift of trying to install Julius Randle, trying to install DiVincenzo. But I say all that to say for the last 24 hours when we've been in LA, you've just been talking my ear off about, I think AD is going to crush. And I thought the Lakers just had a really good game plan. Redick said after the game that they installed a ton of stuff in the last just 3 days that was opponent specific. I think they really had a firm game plan for this team that they're about to play. Look aheads, trying to run off makes. I just thought the Lakers, I don't think the Lakers are going to be good all season, and I don't think they're going to be able to keep up this level of play. But tonight, they looked like a really good basketball team. And, no disrespect to Anthony Edwards, but the best player on the court by a mile was Anthony Davis. And I don't think 6 Karl-Anthony Towns could have stopped him.
Yeah, no, I watched a couple of the Lakers preseason games, and I mean, we were talking about that, coming out here. I was like, man, it just seems like they're playing through the way they're using Anthony Davis
The way you're supposed
with
to use it.
with JJ Redick. It's just it popped to me, like not necessarily in this game, but just when I was watching the preseason stuff, it felt more like Embiid,
Yeah.
where you're like, this is something we're going to, and there's multiple spots we're comfortable uh going to with him, and that kind of was on my mind coming into this game, because we know what the Wolves antidote to Embiid's, Giannis's, Jokic's, the Davis, the 7-footers that are a problem offensively is they would put Cat on them, and they would have Rudy kind of lurk in that spy and help. And obviously we remember with Jokic that worked really well in the Western Conference semis, and it's something they went to frequently. They don't have the Carl part of that in their bag. They could obviously go to that a little bit with Nas, maybe Julius at times, but it makes me kind of nervous in general that I think it's going to mean a lot more. Rudy just has to take these guys, and Jokic historically in one-on-one, kind of gets Rudy. I even think about like Sabonis at times can kind of overpower him in that way. And I will say, while Anthony Davis had a really good game overall in the first half, because like, I thought Rudy was doing a good job of just handling the Davis matchup one-on-one, and I did not feel like that was all a pain point of the Wolves defense. So I think I say that to be encouraged of like, all right, maybe if Rudy just does need to sometimes guard these Anthony Davis types, maybe he can hold his own a little bit more than I thought he could, just because it felt like they had to go to the cat Rudy spy thing, because Rudy just wasn't quite good enough at the one-on-one element of it. I found his one-on-one defense encouraging on Anthony Davis. Davis definitely got him a lot more once Davis got in a rhythm in the second half and was hitting some of those tough mid-range shots on Rudy. But I'm concerned about the Wolves being able to guard those type of guys when Rudy is not on the floor. And that becomes an Anthony Davis or a Domantas Sabonis on Thursday becomes Naz Reid's primary duty or Julius Randle's primary duty. And I don't know. I mean, we talk a lot about this offense. We're like, oh, Julius needs to move the ball, and Naz is you got to be Cat and all these sort of things. Like, if I'm their coach, I'm getting in there like, hey, we need you to play defense. Like, that is a big part of your role on this team, Naz Reid or Julius Randle, is defense and rebound. Carl's not like some special defender, but he did like listen to doing what he was told defensively last year, did that and rebounded really well. Sorry, long rant there. But.
No, there is, and I didn't watch the game or the Celtics Knicks game. I did watch this game.
Yeah.
Good pod start. But there was some irony too, in like during the game, and AD's cooking anyone who's on him. I mean, even Rudy, like he was kind of cooking him and hitting these, and he took it personally.
But do you agree that at the beginning,
yeah,
Davis
100%.
was Rudy was doing a better job on him?
Yeah, 100%.
First half, yeah, okay.
But there's also like this funny part of me is seeing on the timeline or people around me being like, oh man, they really miss Carl on defense, and then like I look on like Knicks Twitter and they're like, Carl is getting gruesomely attacked by the Celtics on every pick and roll, and they're just cooking him on defense. So they're gonna have to just figure it out a little bit. I mean, they don't really have the cool part about the two bigs experiment was that when they took Rudy out, they could just slide Carl in, and he's a natural 5. Like he was playing 5.
All of a sudden, here go now you're your best version of yourself. Yeah.
They don't have that anymore because you can play small ball 5 with Randle, but that's just not an answer. And I should say too,
just
like
not his or Naz's best position or even close.
The Sabonis one would be more interesting. Sabonis is a really good player, but he's not Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis is a fucking unicorn. And defensively, he was also the best player on the court. You know what I mean?
I would think Rudy would struggle with the Sabonis matchup more than the Davis matchup in a one-on-one situation, just because of like the force.
Maybe they can throw Randle and Naz on Sabonis a little more. I mean, they could not do that tonight because AD was in his bag all over the place. I mean, making plays for others, hitting that mid range, kind of leaners. I think he shot 15 free throws. Like his first step is again, credit to JJ Redick and his first regular season win, because with all the other stuff that they had to kind of figure out tonight in that second quarter, he had AD in the exact spot that you kind of always thought AD would play. And if he can stay healthy, that he's going to have a huge year. But yeah, it was just one thing. Again, it was another Kyle Anderson moment. So it's like, man, when they don't have Rudy out there, even when you look at AD's box scores, like I still thought Rudy played pretty well on both sides. They just don't really have another option for that. And we talked about in the preseason, right? Like, you're not designed to beat one team. It's not like they pivoted and said we don't have to worry about the Nuggets anymore, but they did get smaller in that trade. Like, they just, by getting rid of Towns and Kyle Anderson and bringing in essentially, Joe Ingles and Randle and DiVincenzo, you got smaller. You got a lot more playmaking and you got a lot more shooting. But I don't know, you got to be a little concerned on a night like tonight when AD's cooking and the Lakers made 5 threes and you never really had a chance. Like, if the Lakers, to Ant's point, would have made more threes, it would have been a blowout.
It's the size and it's like the effort too. I'm gonna play
It was terrible.
Yeah, I'm gonna play the Gobert clip from the locker room about the effort.
I don't think there's any guy in this locker room that doesn't play hard, But I do think tonight they were the most physical team, and they were the team that got most of the 50-50 ball. So that can happen. It has to be who we are every night. And that's our identity. That's one of the reasons why we're so good last year, because we're the most hungry team almost every night. So we got to find that.
That's why we were so good last year. We were always the more hungry team, and they did not come off as that. You don't have to be the bigger team to be the more hungry team. And I think that's just what the group needs to be. And I think you get Jaden McDaniels out of foul trouble. You get Naz Reid in more of a rhythm. You get Julius Randle to shake off some more of his rust. And I think you get that hunger back. There was even the beginning of the fourth quarter. You're like, okay, there it is. The defense is hungry. Nikhil is, which I want to talk about as well, is like attacking defensively. Jaden got a steal. They got out and ran. You're like, okay, there it is again. It's that tenacious defense that kind of breathes life into their offense. But that was, I don't know, 30 minutes a game during like last season where it felt like that. It was like 3 tonight where the defense seemed hungry and effective, because of it. They do need to get that back because they don't have the size as much as they did before. So got to be the hungriest team again.
It's kind of a fascinating dilemma though, because when you tweeted that out, what was it, end of third, fourth, when they I think they're down by 19 at one point and they get it down to 3 or 4 point game. We're like, okay, the defense is breathing life into the offense. This is kind of a hot take late at night as we're doing this at 1 a.m. in the morning. But like, I don't know if the Wolves offense has ever been that good, but when it was at its best that I remember from last season, it was based on just suffocating defense. And tonight, there's just like, I don't know, I'm just kind of ripping through team stats here, but like this stuff to me is all just kind of effort. They were outscored 72-40 in the paint, 17-7 in fast break points. They had 16 turnovers. The Lakers had 7. Lakers had 8 blocks, or Wolves had 1. And then the offensive rebounds, the Lakers finished with 15. They had 12 in the first half. Like, that's just all effort. And some of that ties into defense, but some of that just ties into, again, kind of just not having your head up your ass in terms of playing. Like, there were so many times where a shot, they would get a good stop and the ball would bounce off the rim and then land on the ground once, like bounce once or twice, and no one would be there to get it. And then a Laker would pick it up and they'd get an easy bucket. So that part is like, okay, maybe this is just all one big stupid misunderstanding and it was a bad game in LA. I know I am dealing with LA hangover. Like, maybe that's just all it was. And you'll see them. Ant left the locker room tonight with the shades on. And it was like, we'll bounce back in Sacramento. Like, we're fine. And maybe they will. And maybe this will be the dumbest podcast we do all season. But
no, but it's just like, and they probably will. I don't think we're suggesting they're not going to. We're talking about the things that they will have to do
Yeah.
so as to bounce back, which are the things that Finch said that they will have to do, which are the things that Rudy said that we'll have to do. I mean, this isn't not being like hard. They played the Lakers, who like are kind of shitty, and they like got beaten by them pretty bad. Like they're not clicking yet.
I know you want to talk about him, but like no better time than now, because I actually thought,
yeah, Nikhil. Let's hit that, and then
he
and
did
then the
everything that
extension.
we just said the team didn't do.
Yeah, which is just it fits so well too. Of like, oh, like everything they did in the preseason they didn't do in the regular season opener. Nikhil had a terrible preseason, like a concerningly, like what, like are you gonna still be able to do what you did now that DiVincenzo's there, which is all for like the millionth time. Good reminder of preseason is not predictive. But I thought Nikhil looked exactly like himself from last season, like and nothing like the player that I saw struggle to handle. Didn't seem to have like the similar effectiveness defensively. I don't know, maybe just with him, like he plays so hard that you'd need to maybe turn the stakes up that for him to kind of be able to get into it, but looked like a nightmare to be D'Angelo Russell and be guarded by his little like slithering on top of screens, and he just doesn't stop. It's like, like D'Lo get off the ball and Nikhil just doesn't stop. And that's what made him such a weapon, such a piece for this team last season. And I was concerned about that, like for sure being able to come back, and I guess to this too, only one game, but easily, if there's one player I was most individually impressed by, it's Nikhil, and it's not even
close.
Not even close. Yeah.
I thought he and to being there at the stadium tonight, watching that game, he was doing the most Kyle Anderson. Like he was doing Dane's taking all these high level notes about rotation stuff, and I'm just like watching, like, how do these guys interact on like dead balls and stuff? And he was the guy bringing them together. I know Ant had that wake up moment where he's yelling after an and one. He's like, wake up in the first half. Nikhil brought them together, trying to get them kind of rejuvenated. So, yeah, as the person who boldly predicted he would be traded and see his minutes cut just because of all the other guys and pieces of the pie, Mike and Dante and maybe Rob, Nikhil was, in my mind, their MVP in a losing effort tonight. Yeah. He was awesome, and he did all the little stuff. He was on the ground. He was trying to fight for these 50-50 balls. And then his defense, like you said, even when he wasn't on the ball, he was just a menace for whether it be D'Lo or Austin Reeves or whoever. So can
you imagine if you just like the backup point guard for whatever team, like I guess the Kings pick Jordan McLaughlin, but I'm just still like,
saw him today.
Yeah, no, it's not. But like if you're just like watching film, and you're like, oh, we got the Wolves coming up next. And you're like, oh man, yeah. Alexander Walker's going to guard me like that. That everybody has to think, because it just is relentless the way that he guards, and also maybe you got to play him with Jaden more often so Jaden can get off ball. Like can't he be part of the solution for mitigating some of Jaden's foul trouble? Like maybe Jaden just can't guard, can't be the guy that you're expecting to put at the point of attack all the time, because it is so dysregulating for this team when McDaniels gets in foul trouble. Just like Finch always says, Jaden's such a barometer for us offense. When the offense is playing well, Jaden McDaniels' offense is playing well. Well, Jaden McDaniels needs to be on the floor to play offense well, so your offense can play well as a whole. I think the more we talk about this now, I'm just like, man, that third fall of whatever happened when him and LeBron fell all over each other, that was total turning point.
I do think they kind of lost the game because of Jaden McDaniels, but not like it's all his fault.
Yeah, just it set up a weird set of events, like going forward.
And standing next to Julius Randle, like I know Carl's not 7 foot, but like I just feel like he's a bigger guy than Julius Randle. To me, Jaden is not only the barometer of everything you always talk about, he's also the barometer of like when he's out there, that's a big, long team. And when Jaden's not out there, it does kind of seem like they're a small team. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden
it does.
You got to have Nikhil and Dante and Mike and maybe Rob and Ant and like they're just, and Nas, who has lost 1 million pounds. Like they're just a kind of a small team all of a sudden. So that's one thing that I don't know if tonight was the same type of foul trouble that we experienced in his first couple of years. Again, I don't think any of them were like dumb, but we kind of have always joked that he just starts with 3. And if that's the case, like you just have to be so mindful that in knowing him or knowing people around him that talk about him, like he does take this stuff seriously. He's super competitive just because he's quiet. Like he's kind of a defensive assassin. You probably just have to give up those points in the first quarter. Like if it comes down to like, just give up an easy layup or maybe draw a foul and it's the first quarter, just always give up the easy layup. Like do these little things that your goal is to try to just get out of that first stint of your starting rotation.
Yeah. I still want him to guard when he's there. And like, I think the move is to not put him in the matchups that he would foul as much. I feel like I don't want to be like, well, okay, you can just go by.
Yeah,
like,
don't you have to then like kind of drastically change the rotation a little bit?
No, why can't just like it'd be nice if Ant could guard like the main wings more often, or like so they set this one up today, right? With actually I have the matchups. What were the opening matchups were? Oh my god, sorry, I'm killing time here. But they had Ant on D'Lo, Conley on Reeves, McDaniels on LeBron, Randall on Hachimura, and Gobert on Davis. I don't know. Maybe that
Did you put Randall on LeBron there just to start that first stint, knowing that it's just so valuable for that guy to play more minutes in the second half.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is I just think you need to. The Jaden gets the main guy 85% of the time. I think if you give Jaden the main guy 85% of the time on the perimeter, Jaden McDaniels is going to have foul trouble again. And it doesn't mean he hasn't matured more this year. Like, I think there's also this weird, like Jaden's always so much taller than the guy he's guarding. Maybe not LeBron, but he's taller than LeBron too. Like there's just something about guarding on the perimeter when you're the bigger guy. I feel like it just makes you like a bump looks more like it's on you. I don't know. We'll have to figure out more about the Jaden foul trouble, but I think we're in agreement and pulled together in this that like, yeah, and maybe now that Jaden is better, he's a better piece. He's a more main guy on the team. When he is out or his rotation is moved around or can only play 16, 18 minutes, whatever, like this team's going to probably feel that even more this year than they did a season ago. When that happened, often, and I felt like we really felt it too. So I don't know. We were talking about Nikhil, like shout out Nikhil. I think he can handle. I mean, he like closed the game, right? Like that. He was in the closing group. Nikhil was,
and I think the word fluidity will be something that Finch probably just brings up a lot because he does have so many options. Tonight he only played 8. I think I don't think he regrets it, but it would be the Josh Minot thing. I know we're talking about Josh Minot now, like. He can't just not play, but I would imagine tonight was a one-off where it was really matchup specific. I'm not saying Josh Minot would have won them the game, but he does give you a little bit of some of the Jaden stuff, right? Like he's a bigger wing.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, we got to go off of what Finch did in this game, and I think Josh Minot is now. I'm not expecting him to play. I mean, they played eight guys in the rotate. I mean, I feel like Josh Minot is numerous players away from being. Let me just play the Finch rotation clip.
Yeah.
Chris, you went with 8 guys in your rotation. You kind of got to Joe as a ninth when Jaden was in foul trouble. What led you to choose to kind of keep it at 8?
Just coming into the game, I wanted to play 9. Probably wanted to get Joe some more minutes. That's the way it kind of mapped out with foul troubles, and being down. I went back with some guys a little bit earlier than maybe I would have normally done.
So wanted to play 9. Joe is the 9th. So it's like, I know you don't want Joe Ingles to be the 9th, but it's so obvious that Chris Finch does. And Chris Finch also thinks Joe Ingles is the Kyle Anderson thing that you're asking for.
That's true.
You just don't like what he looks like.
No. If my biggest complaint would have been that they just, and Finch said it himself after the game, is that they should have just probably given Joe some more minutes. Like, I don't think Joe hit his shots, but I just think this rotation needs to be 9 for a while because they have too much talent. And whether that be Josh getting some chances or just Rob. I mean, again, we're talking about an offense that was really sticky and wasn't moving the ball. And I know, again, this is going to be so funny to think about.
Ingles is the guy that you would put in that would most inject ball movement out of anybody on the team.
Sure. I think Rob would have probably pushed a little pace and brought a little life to the party. I mean, again, preseason is totally useless, but for a while there, that man was leading the league in assist to turnover ratio. Like, I imagine he would have got the ball moving.
I feel like that's like a good stat, or is it indicative of his play?
No, I just think that if I had to say like the biggest complaint of that game is just there was no real rationale, especially with Jaden 3 fouls 2 minutes in the second, that the rotation was after Jaden's out like 7 guys. Like, like Jaden goes out and
then it was Ingles.
Joe playing 7 minutes. So, and again, maybe this will all open up and it was matchup specific. I mean, Redick basically said like we did all this stuff just to play the Timberwolves, who are a really good team, and it could all change and they'll play 10 on Thursday against the Kings.
No, I mean, and I did come in and say, I mean, how many times did I say I think they're going to play 10 guys? Like that was what I thought was going to happen in this game or for the beginning of the season. I just think it was not that. It was 8. It was 8 and only got to 9 because Jaden picked up 4 fouls in the first 15 minutes of the game, whatever. So I'm with you. Like, I think we could do the thing where like Minot would theoretically add some of the stuff that we've been talking about that they were missing in this game, and Rob too, like offensively for the reasons you pointed out. But this is the 240 minutes game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I think of Josh or I think of Rob, those two specifically, I mean, even Terrence, who has very little chance to play early on, I just think of chaos. And maybe Finch saw this like, hey, if we can just get it to 4, like this is a professional, mature game against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like, we can't throw these kids into the wolves like that. But I just thought they needed a spark. And I don't know if Joe Ingles is the spark. Joe Ingles is probably more of a steady player that is going to be a fixture of this rotation as he works.
I think he is a spark for ball movement. And I think he actually was.
And I think simply put, then I think Finch made a mistake not playing him more. And I think he copped to that after the game because the ball, I mean, anyone who watched that game or rewatches it on Wednesday, the ball movement in my mind, and maybe it's because I'm just so caught up in the moment of watching Ant and Randall, I don't know if the ball movement has ever been stickier than it was tonight.
Wasn't great. Was not great. All right, we still got to talk about ownership and the Rudy Gobert extension, but let's hit on the Gobert extension.
That came out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, it was just right. Well, I mean, yeah, I certainly was not expecting it today, but we did know we talked about this and how this was a possibility of something that they could do to lock up Rudy long term and bring his number down. So as of this morning, Rudy Gobert's contract was $43 million for this season, $47 million for next season, a 2-year, $90 million contract. He had a player option for next season for year 2 of that. So what they did with this contract was Rudy agreed to decline his player option, that $47 million for next year, and sign an extension that for 3 years and $110 million. I think that will probably start around $34-35 million for next year, which means their delta from 47 down to 34-35 is now they have 12-13 million more in space below that second apron line that they're going to need to be able to stay. They're going to want to stay below next season because they're above it here. So it really gives them another $12-13 million that they can dedicate to Naz Reid and or Julius Randle, who are both have player options for next season as well. So now you do. I mean, that's a big. Rudy could have easily just opted into that 47 next season and would have caused the Wolves some pretty serious financial issues. It would have. I mean, it could have cost them, Naz Reid. It just would have gotten a lot tighter. Obviously, there's some contingencies to it. I'm pretty shocked the number was as low as it was. I mean, we're now talking that's 110. So in total, he's now, if you include this year, on a 4-year, $153 million deal for a guy that just came off winning Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, offensive flaws and shortcomings and all. I don't know. I just saw a bunch of players who, granted, were younger that signed rookie extensions yesterday
Yeah.
that were at those numbers, and a lot of guys who are guys that their team signed for, in theory, of what they're going to become going forward. I think almost regardless of what you think of Rudy as a player, because we know there's a whole spectrum of those, but I think even for people lower on Rudy, yet still somewhat rational and can see the value that he does provide. I don't know, a 3-year, $110 million extension that also gets him to rip up the 1 year and 47 he had there coming. I mean, that's, Rudy referred to it as a win-win after the game. I mean, I think that is just the way I think about that, whatever. I think that was a huge win for the Timberwolves from certainly from a financial flexibility standpoint. I obviously want to get your thoughts on it, but Rudy was asked about signing the contract extension after the game.
How did it all come together?
I mean, I think it was about finding a win-win situation. I'm happy here. He's happy here. I want to win a championship here, and also my next year contract was really high. So being able to allow the team to keep our guys, and also that was the win for the Timberwolves, but being able to also keep me for longer term was great for both of us, and also for me, just giving me the more stability, long term. I think was what we were looking for. So I'm really grateful. I'm really happy. And the goal is still the same, regardless of if you would have had a deal or not. The goal is to win the championship.
The goal is still to win a championship. I think Rudy Gobert, by signing that contract, put the Wolves in a significantly increased the odds that the Wolves win a championship sometime over the next 5 years pretty drastically. I mean, Grant, whatever, I'm not saying it locks up a championship or anything like that, but if you don't get off of that 47 next year, you either lose the salary slot of Randle and probably more importantly, Naz Reid. I think it opens up a lot for this team. I got to think about it a little bit. Obviously, this happened right before the game. We went to the game, and now we're here. But my feeling right now is huge win from a Timberwolves perspective, and congrats to Rudy for locking up another $100 million to the bank account. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, this is a fun way to kind of talk about this topic and then maybe leak into the ownership stuff, because we're here in LA, and this was a fun one for me because I had heard about this before it broke, and when I was told it from someone with the team, it was like, this is all Tim. This is all credit to Tim Connelly. Another one of those Rudy Gobert trade, D'Angelo Russell trade, Naz Reid extension. Everything you just said makes sense. And when you start to look at the books, I mean, I feel bad for the second apron cans because those things are now relics because of the cap sheet is different on those things. But the timing of it, I think, is really important because now it just gives you more time to plan. I mean, that player option was kind of sitting over everyone's head.
Sure.
Because you can't really pick up your player option now. It would have just been floating around, and then it would have had to been something they figure out next year. So for Rudy to, and again, going back to what I was told, this is all about what Tim Connelly is creating with this culture. And how long will Tim Connelly be here? That'll, I guess, be TBD. But it's another veteran that took a pay cut. I mean, that's what this is, right? I mean, this is a pay cut. Because Rudy Gobert was going to get money from someone. So Mike does it, and now Rudy does it, and they're kind of both taking less to tie themselves while they see the younger guys, Ant and Jaden, and obviously Naz next summer, getting max deals pretty much, or very high level extensions. Yeah, it is. It is a win-win, right? I mean, regardless of Anthony Davis's performance tonight, whatever, this team needs Rudy Gobert to have a chance to win a title. Especially in this current iteration of how everything is built. And for them to, I mean, I was we got the news 5 minutes before the ball tipped off. I mean, it sounded like it also got done about 7 minutes before that.
Right.
So this wasn't like something that was hanging around. It was like it got done at about 6:55 Pacific time. And credit to everyone involved. Credit to Rudy for finding comfort in a place that I don't think he was comfortable when he first arrived, just because Utah was all he knew. Credit to the organization for creating a culture that, and this is all CBA stuff that I'm sure Dane's brain will digest as we move forward. But now you're starting to see guys willingly take less money. I mean, Brunson will always be the gold standard, right? But willingly take
that one's all fake.
right, but willingly take less money to, because on the flip side of it, if he wouldn't have done this and just like you said, maxed out his earning potential, it would have then just led to another move down the road where they lose talent.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, again, I think it's a win. I'm definitely more on the Rudy's good side of things, which it's crazy that there's another side of that spectrum. Whatever. I will say though, that I think there's still somewhat of an open question of if the archetype of player that Rudy Gobert is the best fit at the 5 for Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? And now this is a commitment to, I mean, there's a trade kicker in that and everything. Like, I don't think,
And a player option too.
yeah, if this, you know, if they pivot off of this roster in some way and for some reason, it's probably not going to be Rudy Gobert and it's certainly not going to be Anthony Edwards. So I think part of this is like Ant and Rudy are going to be teammates, you know, for 4 more seasons. And there's for sure times for me where I think it's stylistically frustrating, the type of player that Rudy is, that I think can get in Ant's way offensively some. I think a lot of that is about Ant figuring out how to play with him better and those things. Again, I thought that's something we saw in preseason. That's something I've heard all summer, that there's definitely more of a pick and roll chemistry there, just more naturally kind of getting into some stuff that didn't pop today. But it has in what we saw in the preseason. So I think I certainly think it can be a good pairing, and has been, and obviously look at last year. But I have always wondered, is it, what archetype of center is the best for Anthony Edwards, and the archetype that they're going with is clearly this Gobert one, and that'll just be something to track. And now it's no ifs, ands, or buts. Ant needs to figure out how to play great, specifically with a 7'2" center who catches lobs and cannot shoot. Like,
Right.
he just Ant needs to be great at playing with that type of player, and there's some learning and growing to do there. There still doesn't mean that contract wasn't a huge win. I think Rudy provides so much for Ant defensively, and just there's still so much that I don't think we pick up on all the time of what Rudy covers up for defensively. Though I think that might become a lot more clear how important Rudy Gobert is defensively this season if Nas or Randle are going to be as bad at the 5, alternatively, when he's out there. I mean, I don't think Rudy and Ant are a bad pairing. I really don't. But there's somewhat of an open question about their offensive fit together, and I guess rip that question up, because this is it.
And Rudy Gobert is now a foundational piece of this franchise, which I know that sounds kind of silly, but like, I think there was this thought, we did the preview pods, we said this 2 weeks ago, that next summer you have Nas Reed, who has potential player option, and Nikhil's a free agent, and Rudy has a player option. But there was kind of this idea that like Nas, Ant, and Jaden were the future, like the building blocks. Rudy is here now, like you said, for this season and 3 more beyond it. So he is a part of that, and you can't win. I mean, not to go to the Celtics for a second, but like with the Tatum and Brown thing, which are completely different players, but those guys have to be cohesive. Like, they have to bring out the best in one another. And I think we've seen some small steps in the right direction with that pairing on the offensive end, but that'll be part of this whole puzzle, right? Like if Anthony Edwards was running just elite pick and rolls tonight with Rudy, I don't think we would have been talking about a stagnant offense. I think a lot of other things would have worked out from that. So
I'd love for them to run more pick and roll. I'd love the Wolves to, in general, particularly in those times when, like today, when it gets stagnant. I
like when he rolls to the middle, or like, he rolls and gets in the middle and he has 3 different options to spray the ball. And I thought tonight
he's getting way better at that.
I thought tonight, I mean, I've kind of referenced this like the Draymond Green thing, but when you catch it kind of at the foul line and he has options now in any corner, because they almost always have now 4 shooters around him, even if it's Julius Randle in one of the corners. So I thought Rudy, again, that's like a little thing tonight. It's like he was really good with that. But when he found Dante didn't hit rim. And when he found Mike went 0 for 5. So if those guys, to give Ant some credit, as we talked about at the top, hit some of those shots, this might all be different. But don't let a game 1 loss, erase the fact that this is truly this is the win. And this was the last domino we talked about in September and August. Like, all they really have left is other than ownership, is to figure out this Rudy Gobert thing. And they figured it out, and it came in at a number that the cap guy, was like, that's lower than I thought. And that's a win.
Yeah. Ownership is all we have left to do on this podcast. As well, it's laid out here. I mean, and maybe Chris and I can get into this in maybe some more detail tomorrow as well. We've been going here for about an hour, but did want to note the Shams Charania report and subsequent John Krasinski article on The Athletic. I would just start by saying, if you want to familiarize yourself with what is going on and what potentially could go on with the Timberwolves ownership situation, read John Krasinski's article at The Athletic, because I think it did a good job of highlighting the news, the quote unquote news today of, the report that $940 million from the Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez team is sitting in escrow right now with JP Morgan, which is big. It is a strong proof against the idea that they didn't have money to be able to afford this. It really, stamps that. I think if you've been listening here or you've been reading John and the actual reporters reporting on this would know that I think a lot of the money stuff was always, overblown. But John's story also does a good job of detailing the rest of the process and the what they are going to have to prove that they made of the payments they've made already along the way, being on time and this 90-day grace period sort of thing. So I know this is a very annoying story to come up at all for any Wolves fans. I know many people were annoyed that they came up today, just being as it's the the first game of the season. But the update is the money is there. Arbitration starts in 2 weeks, November 4th. That's going to go from November 4th through November 8th, election week. And we should start to, that will be the process there. And then the arbitrators, I think, we'll discuss, and we'll have a little bit more of a resolution come the end of the end of November. Key takeaways. I know you've been talking to a lot of people on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of it. No one really wants to talk about this, right? Especially you don't want all these news breaking stories on big game days, right? Like when Glenn had that press release, it was against the Nuggets that night. I thought today was kind of just more of an update, but I also see that I not like a new thing. It's just kind of really to break this down for my dad who's listening, is they got $940 million in a savings account. It's not just like a IOU. It's actual money. The money's there, just waiting. Mm-hmm. Anyone who has bought a house or escrow, it's sitting right there. And in some other reporting was they also have $300-ish million in a checking account, basically, that's ready to run the team. Mm-hmm. And by that, and that kind of does tie back into what we just talked about with the Rudy stuff,
luxury tax. Yeah.
I think new ownership or the new potential ownership group played a role in this Rudy Gobert extension, and they played a role in getting Tim Connelly here and kind of signing off on it. So it's all going
to. They are the reason Tim Connelly is the president of basketball operations, And I think we both agree that Tim Connolly is the reason that this team has the roster construction that it does. You just rip through all the Conley, D'Lo, Cat, all the moves. I mean, the Rob Dillingham, this is Tim Conley, like, came in here when he was hired by Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez, was like, I'm going for it and I'm doing it my way. Came in right away with the Gobert move, and he was empowered by Mark and Alex and their team at the beginning, and then also with the approval of Glenn, and when everybody was friends and everything, and there was like that was all like working together. But yeah, my biggest thing that I think of for fans to think about is like, what should I feel about this? What's going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. But what should I feel? I go to, what's the best thing that's happened to the Timberwolves in the past couple of years, and it is the hiring of Tim Connolly and the moves that he made to put this team in the position to go to the Western Conference Finals last year and to maybe go even further beyond that. And if you dig into the details, Tim Connolly was hired to a 5-year contract, but had an opt-out after 2 years. Like, everybody, like, listen to this. He had a 5-year contract. There was 2 years. The second year just ended. That was last year, at which point Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez were going to take over and Glenn Taylor was going to be gone. I think we're doing a lot of wishy-washy guessing if we don't think there was a corollary there. And if you think that was just random that he decided to put in an opt-out after year 2, well, then why did he delay his opt-out by 1 year when this ownership stuff all just happened? And he just pushed it back a year. That just happens to be in line with the timing of when this ownership agreement is, will be concluded. It'll certainly be figured out by next summer, when Tim Connolly will have the choice to opt in to staying here in Minnesota or opt out and leave. I think that behavior, to me, screams that he is a Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez loyalist. Not to say that he hasn't worked with Glenn Taylor and all that, but I think Conley was hired under the premise that he was going to be working for Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez, and left the Cronkies in Denver, who he was very close with.
It still is, yeah.
Yeah, to come and be here and choose this group. So obviously Tim Connolly has had to work with the Glenn Taylor side of this civil war, and is cordial. And I think actually him and Finch do a really good job of navigating what I could only imagine is a very difficult and confusing workplace. Seriously, I do. I give Tim credit, and all these moves, like I don't know, what boss do I have to email to get this thing greenlit? That I'm sure that's been tough, but I just think Tim is so much of why this team is where it is today. Obviously, Ant too, and that predates. But just from a roster construction standpoint, I mean, it's pretty clear. And so I think if you're a Tim Connolly fan, it's a good sign that this ownership group has their ducks in a row and their money in escrow set to purchase the team completely.
And that was kind of a little bit of a update too recently, even though we had heard this stuff for a while, is that this number that we're talking about, 940 million, is, which most of it should go to Naz Reid, is like buying Glenn Taylor out fully if arbitration were to
because Glenn Taylor currently owns 36.1% of the Timberwolves, and Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez currently own 36%. That obviously that's intentional. And
price is right.
And and so they're basically going to be buying out Glenn and all his LPs and pick up that extra 64% of the sale, which is about $940 million. So again, we'll see what happens in arbitration. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know how that all works. But yeah, that's where we're at. Sorry.
And as you had said, go read the Krasinski thing. Of all the times in the world, like go read the Krasinski thing, because what he reminded even like me, and we've been pretty tapped into this topic, is that what arbitration is going to do is decide contractually who owns the team, not who is the best owner.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this isn't going to be like, you're not going to be able to present slideshows or decks on what a new stadium could look like. This is about, did the new ownership group abide by the contract? And by everyone you talk to, like, I've always heard cautiously optimistic. And now I feel far more confident that they feel like, in the evidence gathering portion of the last 4 months, like, that they are going to ultimately come out of it. But yeah, I mean, you talked about roster things. This is my last point on it, but we've been here for 48 hours. We've been around the team. We're hanging out with people, getting dinner. Like, the culture thing also matters. And I know that that's really hard to talk about, but the roster is one thing and the moves he's made. But again, Rudy Gobert taking less money, Mike Conley taking less money, Naz Reid probably taking less money last year, I just think that man is the linchpin. I mean, this is the best the franchise has ever been run, and they have so much talent and a great coach on stuff. But I still think Tim Conley is like, if you pull that out, because he decides he inevitably doesn't want to work for whoever, whether it be Glenn. If you pull that out, I don't think it's a house of cards, but I think,
and we don't know that he would, he would leave, but he has an opt out in his contract that allows him to do that, and I just think that's the idea. That's a little scary, So, anything else?
Just it's the Minnesota Timberwolves are so back. It's like in LA, they come out flat. If you're listening to this and you didn't catch the game, or you just catch the box score, you're going to be disappointed because the expectations have never been higher. And can't wait for you and I to do a pod in another Friday when they've played 4 more games, because the vibes in the 9 years I've been doing this, the vibes have never been lower than after Game 3 against the Atlanta Hawks last year. That was so low. They're 1-2. They blew a lead. Fire Finch, and it was bad. And then I think you told me like they went 16-4 or something after that. You know what I mean? So it's not all roses. Like I started this off by saying they played like dog shit, and they did. But a lot of talent, a lot of good culture, a lot of good people behind the scenes, and I'm really fascinated now. I'm more excited to watch them play on Thursday against the Kings, and then to open it up at home on Saturday against that pesky Toronto Raptors team. So long season, a lot to improve, a lot of film to watch. That's always a lazy answer, right? Oh, we'll go watch the film. I'm not going to watch that film, but yeah, I'm glad to be back, and I'm just glad to be here with you, because again, the people that are listening to this and those long ad reads we do and stuff, that's the whole reason Dane and I, if you're watching on YouTube, are doing this from our hotel room in LA. So thanks to everyone that supports us, because it's going to be a really fun season. I know we're going to do a lot of cool content.
Next up is the game in Sacramento. I am headed there on Wednesday morning. Chris Hine and I actually will do a podcast on Wednesday night, so you'll have that up Wednesday, probably late Wednesday evening. And we'll kind of dig into more of this. I'll have rewatched the game, but then another game on Thursday night against the Kings, and we'll do a pod after that. We'll keep moving from there. Kyle, I appreciate you doing it. You guys can obviously follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Theige. You can listen to him here all the time, and also occasionally on Flagrant Howls until Wednesday night with Chris Hine from the Star Tribune. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd.